righty, gang. Here's to nights that turn into mornings and friends that turn into family. Cheers!
Happy birthday to you!
Hello, and welcome to the Friendship IRL podcast. I'm your host, Alex Alexander. My friends, they would tell you I like to ask the hard questions. You know who I am in the group. I'm the person that's saying, okay, I'm going to ask this question, but don't feel like you have to answer it. And now I can be that friend for you too. I know that a lot of you are here for those real life examples. This is what I keep hearing from people. They love the podcast because it gives you real examples that you can consider implementing in your own life. And today is one of those episodes. Today, we are going to talk about the journey of a simple, basically group text that is turned into this thriving friend group community. They're doing all sorts of things together, living life together, supporting each other through hard times. And you're going to get a behind the scenes look at what this really took over the past 3 years. Now, something that I want you to keep in mind, and I touch on this in the episode, but I'm going to call it out here because I think it's so important. Quite often, when I talk to people, they will tell me the ideal end goal. They will say something like, I want a group of friends that I can get together with all the time, or I want friends I can have over to my house and just have it be casual. They talk about the end goal and forget that starts somewhere. It starts somewhere really simple, probably seemingly like meaningless in the beginning. A favorite things text group. This is not something we would place tons and tons of value on if we were invited to it. But everything starts somewhere simple. Every friendship, every connection, every group starts somewhere. So that's why I'm constantly talking about appreciating the value of these simpler interactions in our life, because everything starts somewhere. We don't meet anybody and they're just suddenly our best friend. I know that's what the movies want to tell us, but it's just not the truth. So please listen to today's example and maybe keep it in mind the next time you're invited to something simple, that we never know where those simple connections are going to go and how they're going to grow in our lives and impact us overall. Now, let's get to the episode. Hi, Brenda.
Hi.
I'm so excited that you're here today.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here too.
You know, you are another one of those brave people who heard about this work, heard about my podcast, and said, yeah, I want to talk about this stuff more. I want more people to hear about the possibilities of friendship and community out there in the world. So I really appreciate you being here today.
Oh, no problem.
I'm so excited about what we're going to chat about, because I think that this is such real. I want to use the word real. Like, this is such a simple way that people can connect. Like, this is such a great example of how something so simple, some small action, can blossom into this bigger sense of community, deeper connections. So do you want to tell us a little bit about the Marco Polo group that you were telling me about and how it all started?
Sure. So it was obviously like in 2020, our lives changed, and we had a group of girls, ladies, that we all go to the same church, and we wanted to continue to have community, but it wasn't even planned to have community as in like, let's see if we can make new friends. It was more of a favorites group. That's how it started. It was a favorites group that one of the ladies created to share our favorite kitchen gadget or our favorite makeup line or, just like your favorite things. That was the goal. And so quite a few of us joined. I don't know exactly how many, but I'm going to say about 15 maybe of us joined. And this happened right around when the pandemic started. So, I did not know about Marco Polo. So I joined Marco Polo for this group specifically. And then all of a sudden, and actually, maybe we should talk a little bit about what Marco Polo is, but it's like an app that you have where you can chat with people, and it's like a video chat. And so you leave a message and people see it, like it's like a group chat. So
they can watch it on their own time, respond on their own time. It keeps the responses in order. So if there's 15 people in a group chat, you can kind of like watch as the conversation moves forward. Somebody might build on something the previous person said or answer a question, and that doesn't get lost. It's all kept in chronological order.
Yeah. So that's the nice thing about it, is that you can respond at your own time. You record your video and it stays there. And, anyway, so it started as sharing favorite things. And then at some point, somebody probably shared something that was not our favorite thing, but maybe like, oh, I didn't sleep last night because our kid, I don't know, something. I don't remember exactly what it was, but all of a sudden we're sharing things that are a little bit more personal than just our favorite thing. So just like with everything, some people stayed and some people decided it wasn't for them once we started getting a little bit deeper into the conversations. So from that group, a few ended up leaving. Some of us stayed. Things got rough with life, let's talk about like what happened today. Yeah. And so it just kind of evolved into this group where all of a sudden we're sharing things that are personal and we're being vulnerable and open, and we're starting to get to know each other. And we're starting to trust each other. You just put in the time. And I mean, to be honest, like at the beginning, for me, especially, most of what I'm going to say is obviously my perspective of how it happened. For me, it was like, well, I mean, I haven't done my hair today, so I don't want to be on Marco Polo, but I'll listen to the girls. I'll see what they have to say. And then something comes up and it's like, oh, but I have to comment on that. So I would get on. So like all of a sudden, I've seen my girls right out of their, like they just woke up, pajamas on, makeup might still be a little smudged, things like that. So it's a vulnerable thing for women, right? Like you don't let people see you like that unless you trust them. So now, almost 3 years into it, it has evolved a little bit, but that's kind of how it started.
I love this for so many reasons. And that the first one is so many people might say, like, they look at the end goal of what you have here. Like you're saying, I have this group on Marco Polo, and we'll talk a little bit later about how it's moved outside of Marco Polo too. But, they want the end goal. They want that group where they can get on and just be themselves, still with sleep in their eyes before they've even had their cup of coffee, and share some of their thoughts. They want that. But people don't know how to get there. Like that's the vision, that's the ideal, that's the goal. They don't know how to get there. And what you're saying is something so simple as share your favorite items slowly over time, kind of like piece by piece, got closer to that ideal. Sharing the favorite things is so, like, it's just such a great example, because so often we all think that sharing anything about ourselves is like too much information, that we're burdening someone else. Do they even want to hear it? Are they even interested?
Yes.
But having such a small direction on why you would contact each other to begin with, you're walking around your house and you're like, I really like that vacuum. And it fits within that parameter. So you just pick up your phone and hit record. Like it makes it so easy to give yourself permission to actually initiate the contact. And initiating the contact is what builds over time to letting each other into your lives, to talking about deeper things. If you don't initiate the contact in the first place, you are never going to build the connections. This is so important. I want to go through it one more time. So what we have here, a formal community, her church. People already had some sort of contact information, were part of this group, so they were invited to a Marco Polo group. And the prompt for the group was share your favorite things. So it gave you something when you walked through your house or through your day to share. And over time, this led to some of what I call those small intimacies, where they started to have their house in whatever state it was in the background of their video, or they weren't fully dressed and make-upped and whatnot the way that they would be to go out into the world. Maybe it was a place to admit they had a bad day or ask a question that they didn't know where to get the resources. Now, the interesting thing about this is so many of us stop ourselves from connecting because we convince ourselves that sharing anything about us is TMI, is oversharing. Have you ever thought to yourself, I want to tell somebody that I like this product, or that I enjoyed this hike, or I had a good day, only to stop yourself because why would they care? I think this happens all the time. We wait until we feel super close to someone to share any of these details. These are those friends where, we feel like we can tell anything to them. But in reality, there are probably a variety of people in our lives who would be interested in the things we enjoy, or whether we're having a good day or a bad day. But somewhere along the line, we've convinced ourselves that sharing our internal world is not something anyone else is interested in, or very, very, very few people are interested in. So the next time you stop yourself from sharing, consider putting yourself out there. Consider this a small intimacy. Consider it an act to tell someone what your favorite product is, or that you really love this restaurant. And see if that starts to foster some more connection and closeness with even your simplest of friends.
Yeah, it really was just as simple as our favorite. And I think at the beginning, it was even difficult for us. After a while, you run out of favorite things, maybe. And so it started to become well, what's the prompt of the day today? Give me your best hack, or show me your favorite room in your house. It started like that. It started all of a sudden, we're all doing tours of our house because we haven't seen each other's houses, right?
Yeah.
Not necessarily, we knew each other from, like I said, from church. We knew each other. We've seen each other, but we didn't have that deep connection where it's, some of us knew each other from other, we had some friendships, but not everybody had that. And some of them were new to our community. Some of them were people that have been in the church for many years. So it's it was all different. And we just found one thing in common that we could be a part of. And honestly, it did take a lot of being brave and exposing yourself. And did we probably, sometimes I was maybe I shouldn't have said that. And then the girls were so kind to not make it a big deal. So I think what I can tell you is from the beginning, all of the girls that are part of this group now, we all were looking for deep friendships, but we didn't know that we were looking for them. It's a weird thing where it's I didn't know how much I needed this until now I have it. And, it was something that was missing from my life.
Yeah. I would assume that a lot of people are going to identify with that listen to this. Society really champions this as an adult, especially I would say as a adult female caregiver, mom, champions this idea of the catch-up friend, the moments when you can sit down and kind of tell someone about how your life has been, but you're not in the present moment with them. You're not like doing things with them. It's very different to be doing parts of life and like updating someone on the process as you're going through it when you're in the moment than it is telling someone after it's all said and done. And it feels like what you're saying, right? Is like you let someone into your present. You walked them around your
Real
house.
time. Mm-hmm.
You're like, real time. Today sucks. I know I said I was doing good yesterday, but today I am not doing good. And that is like a piece of these deeper connections that I think a lot of people aren't acknowledging they want, because we're really sold this idea of like, well, you have all these people that have known you forever. And like, that is beautiful. Don't get me wrong. I love those friendships too. But the reason I think, love those people is because at one point we, quote unquote, did life with them. So what you're saying is like you created this virtual way to kind of do life with these people.
Yeah. We weren't allowed to go places, like the world had shut down. And I mean, I became a stay-at-home mom. Well, I was a stay-at-home mom, but I started homeschooling my kids. And, a couple of the girls in that group literally walked me through the first steps of like, how do you even do this? And I think that if I wouldn't have had that, I don't know that I would have been successful. There's been so many things that I've learned from this group, from the women that are there. I consider them, like you talk about sometimes of like, these are my best friends. Like, do I have 9 best friends?
Mm-hmm.
I do. And I have some other really good friends too that maybe I don't catch up on Marco Polo with, that I would also consider, I have friends from high school that I still hang out with and I still see, and they're really good friends of mine, and so I think it doesn't have to be a specific way. And the fact that we found this friendship with such a big group, we allowed ourselves to be ourselves in the group. And then we had the grace of like, this is how you're showing up today. And that's fine too. Like just having that openness of, yeah, today was rough. During the pandemic, there were a lot of not good days for a lot of us, right? So seeing that and living that with them real time was just, you can't not bond with somebody when you're doing that every day. And we still continue to, check in with each other very often. And, like you said, we did kind of pull it out of that virtual app. And then now we see each other more often in real life, and we get to do a lot of fun things together. So that's been another thing that's like amazing, how we've been able to take it away from just the computer or the screen and create something beautiful for ourselves and for our communities too.
Do you think that it was easier to let people in because you had already let them in small ways before? Like you'd already showed up without makeup on. They'd already seen the inside of your house when it was a mess. They'd already heard when you had a bad day. So do you think that when you started spending more time together in person, it was easier?
Yes, for sure. It was easier. Yeah, it was easier for me to open up to them and even to other people because of the relationship that we already had. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. What kind of things do you all do in person when you're together? I'm curious.
We do dinners out. We do girls' weekends together.
Love it.
We also celebrate lots of birthdays now in person, which is super fun for me. So one of the girls took it upon herself to do breakfast club on Fridays. It was Tuesdays, now it's Fridays. And so like, that's how we took it out of the screen and took it into real life. It's like, she decided other people need this kind of community. How can we bring this out and kind of start inviting other people? We knew that we wanted to show other girls or other women in our communities that, it's okay to have a big group of friends, and it doesn't have to be scary or overwhelming. It can be fun. And so we started with, breakfast club. We started inviting other women that not necessarily were part of that Marco Polo group. And so now I can't attend as often anymore, but they do it every Friday. And that has kind of led into I was hosting for a while, foodie adventure groups. So once a month we would go out and have dinner to a different restaurant in Seattle or around our neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
We love food. So we love to try different ethnicity, food from different ethnicities. Our favorite is Indian. So we go to Indian food a lot, to eat Indian food a lot, but we do, all kinds, Peruvian, Korean barbecue. That was super fun. And, and it allows others to be a part of something. Like maybe some people don't feel comfortable with a large group. So maybe you can go out and have coffee with a handful of girls instead of 15. Or maybe they want to bring their husbands. So like this foodie group adventure, the husbands were allowed to join us. And so we got to also start creating some community with the husbands. We want to make sure that it's not something that we're keeping to ourselves. We want to bring it out to the community, and we want to show other women that it's open for everybody. That's kind of like our goal. It's like one of the girls said it, we're not a circle of friends. Mm-hmm. We're a you. There's always room. There's always an extra seat at the table. There's always something else. Somebody else can join.
For anybody that's just listening to this, I'm over here with like the biggest smile on my face because I have my thoughts, right? Like about my experience and what I've seen. You are confirming a belief I've had, which is that when you build these kind of communities and you feel stable in them, like when you feel comfortable, you want other people to have this. So I have some groups of friends, and we actually, people will say like, because people are scared of big groups. You're right. People are scared. They're not sure, like, oh, do I have to be best friends with everyone in the group? How do you manage this? That's a lot of potential drama. It's really not. Sure, miscommunications happen, frustrations happen. You have to communicate through them, but there's just a lot of misconception, I think. But when you're somebody who is in one, like you are, like I am, we actually spend a good amount of time talking about ways to bring other people in because we want other people to have this experience. Like my friends and I truly have conversations of like, what friend of yours, like friend of a friend, can you invite to this? How can we meet them? How can we invite them? What other groups are you a part of? Bring them here. Bring your family. Bring your spouses. Bring your kids. Like, I really think this is a thing. Like when you feel the magic of the group, you want other people to feel that too.
Yeah, 100%. It's just such a beautiful, loving part of it,
It is. And the bigger group is, there's something else that you're saying here, which is like, once you're comfortable with these people, it makes it so easy to find, right? Like now you have these recurring gatherings where not everyone can attend all the time, but you still get a pretty good sized group. People make it when they can. And then when you're in those gatherings, you can start talking and find out that people like food. Now you're like, who wants to go once a month and try different foods? And then it allows for all these like offshoot activities. I really do think that when you invest enough time to build those groups, you want to share it and you want to keep letting it spread. And if you are somebody that's not in one of those groups, you look at the group and you just feel like it's so like you're outside the circle. When in reality, I think most of the time the people that are in the quote unquote circle, they think it's the you. They want you to come in. They're like, come experience the magic.
For sure. Like I know that we are very aware of like, how can we bring somebody else into this? And who do we need to reach out to? Who would be great for this or that? Because we all have our things that we are good at. How can you connect with somebody else? Like in my case with food, like how can we bring the husband so that now the husbands have a little bit of a community as well? Or, they feel welcome into our group. Because somebody said, I think when I was trying to think about my group, I was like, yeah, let's make a group and we'll have a limit. I think I said like, because you have to have a limit at some point for dinner anyway at a big restaurant or at a restaurant if it's too big of a group. So I said, okay, maybe we can do like 12 people. And then somebody said, my husband would probably really like that. And I was like, well, let's open it up to the husbands, And then one day somebody had to bring their teenager because they were with her. And I said, yeah, of course. Like, this is open to anybody that wants to have community and eat food is welcome. It's just such a beautiful way. And I mean, I think when you're sharing food too, or when you're sharing something, when you're gathered around a table, you never know what kind of conversation is going to come up, right? Like sometimes you can all of a sudden be laughing about something and somebody shares something else about, I don't know. It's just the variety of conversations that you can have around the table is just amazing. Maybe if you're in a group that really likes to do something like a sport together, then maybe sometimes you're only talking about that. But when it's open like that, when it's about just having community, the conversation can be so different.
I mean, that goes back to the being present thing. I think that there's something that happens when you are with people where in the beginning, right, you ask some of those like catching up with them questions, like, how's your week been? You know, you said you had a big meeting 2 weeks ago. Did that go well? Are you feeling better? Right? You ask some of these kind of questions to follow up. But at a certain point when you're with people, you're just there. You're just in the moment. You're talking about the food they're putting on the table. Somebody says that they had that food when they traveled through Southeast Asia. And now you're asking them about the trip in Southeast Asia. And maybe you're not interested in that. So you turn your head and you look at someone else and they're talking about books. And suddenly you're like, oh, I love books. Yeah. Have you read this? The exploration, the unraveling, I guess, that happens when you're just like present with people, but it has to be long enough to move past those questions about the past, or like you've covered all that. So if you're with somebody for a 30-minute coffee or an hour-long dinner, you may never get past that into the present. But like the present is where the magic stuff happens.
Yeah, I mean, even just last night, we went out for dinner for one of the girls' birthdays. And so it's funny because some of us are early birds and some of us are, night owls. And so the early birds were like, dinner, it sounds like we did it at 5 so that most people could attend. And then after that, we were going to go do karaoke. We knew some girls were not going to make it to the karaoke part of it because it was later at night. The girls that were there that are the early birds, they're like, aren't you so proud of us? We stayed for 2.5 hours at the restaurant, and it's really funny that we want to make sure that they feel comfortable staying as long as they want to, right? Mm-hmm. For us that want to stay longer, we make sure that we're letting them know whenever you're ready to go, it's fine. At this point, they're also trying to stay a little bit longer because they're having fun. They're enjoying their time there. And so they're pushing maybe their bedtime so that they can be a part of the fun too. So it changes you in a way that maybe you don't expect it, but it is that openness of like, I'm going to allow myself to stay here, or I'm going to allow myself to go to bed early, or whatever it is, so that you can all experience that part of the conversation that you moved past the catching up about today. Now we're talking about maybe a little bit more of a harder conversation or difficult or, deeper conversation. Yeah.
Yeah. You're like in the thick of it. You're trying to decide what you're actually going to do about a problem right now. Like, can we talk this through? Or you're having some of those more real conversations where what everyone's saying might actually affect the outcome because you haven't maybe done it yet, or you're processing it, or whatever it is. Do you all still, is the Marco Polo group still alive?
It is. It has shifted. We still connect with each other on Marco Polo. And, there was a shift in our group at one point, but we are still on Marco Polo. And there, there's offshoot groups too from that, where there's 3 or 5 of us that are talking about something, or there's all 9 of us, or, so it has shifted in a way, but we still all check in almost every day with each other. We have all kinds of women there. So like we have somebody that has a baby. She can't be on all the time.
Yeah.
And then we have somebody that doesn't have, her kids are adults. She might be able to be there more often than the new mom. So we try to check in. And if at some point one of us hasn't checked in, let's say 3 days, 5 days, we start to take it onto like, what's going on with you? Like send you a text and, hey, are you okay? Do you need anything? So we do check in with each other pretty often.
I love that. But yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying. Because you're seeing each other in person, sometimes maybe you don't need to go as deep in the Marco Polo group because you can just talk about it when you see them in person next week kind of thing. Like that totally makes sense that there was a shift. But I think that's good to, I don't know, maybe just like talk about or acknowledge for the podcast because there are going to be people listening.
Mm-hmm.
Because I do think that sometimes when that shift happens, it might give some people anxiety. Like, is something bad happening to the group? But obviously, just like as life changes happen and availability happens, now being able to see each other in person, that obviously means that the ways you're all spending time and connecting and communicating are shifting too.
Yeah. I mean, there's one girl that I see every week. One of the girls I see every week. And then one of the girls actually moved so we are in Linwood area.
Mm-hmm.
And one of them moved an hour and a half north. And obviously we love to see her on Marco Polo as often as we can because we don't get to see her as often in real life, in person. She does make a lot of effort to drive back and forth as much as she can. She's going through some health issues. So, we also try and go and see her as often as we can. I'm actually on my way up there in a little bit after we're done with this. I'm going to go see her. We do try to do at least one weekend away every quarter if we can. Whether that means like the last one that we had was very close by. It was like Snoqualmie. So it wasn't that far from where we are, but it was enough of a distance to be able to be together. And we were celebrating birthdays and there's a few things that we were celebrating for that. We miss that too. Like sometimes we just want to be with our girls for the whole day and do all the things that we want to do. And the beautiful thing about when we do girls' weekends is that we all go and we just decide what we get to do. Like some girls don't like to go on a hike. So some of the girls might stay back and it's okay. It's just like whatever you want this weekend to be, that's what it's going to be for you. And then hopefully we'll all hang out together at some point. And what ends up happening most of the time is we eat a lot of great food that some of us make. I'm not one of the good cooks there. So, but like we eat lots of great food. We have lots of great company and we do sometimes get, like somebody might want to go for a hike, but we all always come together for a meal, whether it's dinner, breakfast, we're always together for one of the meals at least.
I love that. That's kind of how we travel with our friends. I like it because like instead of moving as a group of 15 all the time, a couple people will go off and they'll do something they want to do and it gives them time to connect. Then they'll come back to the group and then, some other people are off. Like it gives time for those smaller groups or one-on-one connections. Because I think sometimes we forget that like the group is built of, right, your group, like 15 individual relationships, some of which you're like really close to someone, maybe some you're only close in one area of life. You really talk about like one common thing. So you have to like allow time for those bonds. It's not just the 15 together all the time. Like the 15 together happens because of those individual connections. Like, do you feel like you are closer maybe to certain people, even if it's just in like certain areas than others?
Yeah, for sure. There's things that we have in common, with a smaller part of the group, but we allow for everybody to show up however they want, and so I think sometimes when you're in a big group, maybe, this is just me, but you feel like you have to either entertain or be entertained by somebody. And there's got to be conversation happening, like awkwardness. There's some awkwardness sometimes. People might think that there's awkwardness, but when you allow people to just show up however they are and you show up authentically yourself, there's days where I don't want to talk. I just want to listen to them because it's fun. Then it just allows you to relax and really enjoy the time together because you know that you don't have to fill in the void or the quiet awkwardness. You know? I think that's so special too about this group.
I always tell people that one of my favorite things is when somebody falls asleep on my couch. Like if we're having a bunch of people over to watch a game or have a meal or something, and let's say whether it's just one person or maybe it's a couple. So the couple's there and one person really wanted to come. They had the energy. They're excited. They're talking to everyone. And the other person is just there because like they wanted to be with everyone, but they're really, I've had a long day. They're really tired. So they're quiet on the couch and then they maybe let's say fall asleep and they inevitably apologize. Like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry I fell asleep. And I'm like, this shows me that you are comfortable enough to just be yourself here.
Yeah.
Like you wanted to be with other people, so you showed up, but you're also exhausted. So like this actually is the most endearing thing to me.
Yeah. What an honor, right? That you can be maybe a safe place for them to be okay falling asleep. You have to have a connection. You have to have some sort of a trust.
Yeah. But it's kind of that idea, right? Of like what you were saying about hosting. When I have people over, when people are together, what we're all looking for is to just simply do what we want to do to like exist together. It's a lot of trust on their part to just like fall asleep on my couch, but also it's trust on my part as the person who quote unquote is hosting that, I could be thinking, oh my gosh, they're so bored. Or did they even have fun tonight? Maybe I shouldn't have told them I wanted them to come. Maybe they felt pressured. And instead, I'm just simply like, okay, well, I'm going to trust that they wanted to be here and be around everyone, but they're tired. And I'm just going to trust that on all accounts, they've done what they wanted to do and that we're just all going to like simply exist together.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's a good point. Yeah. And I think that's another thing that you kind of get to know people as you do life with them. It's that maybe they did want to show up, but it's okay for me to say, hey, I want you here. And it's okay for them to show up however they are or not, or say to you, maybe not today because I'm tired or whatever. So yeah, we do have a lot of that too, where we make sure, some of us have FOMO. We want to do all the things with everybody, but then there's days where we can't show up. Actually, as we talk about this, I kind of want to shift the conversation a little bit and kind of show you something that I thought was really important for one of the friendships in particular in this group. One of our girls is going through a cancer journey. She found out she has cancer, I would say in the summer of last year. And so we've been walking her through this journey. And one of the girls, it was going to be her birthday. And this person felt like she wasn't helping as much with our friend that is going through cancer. I'm the planner. Let's make a birthday celebration happen somehow. And so I reached out to her and I was like, how do you want to celebrate your birthday? And she said something to me that kind of struck me like, no, this is not the friendship this is not who we are. She said, I don't want to make anybody celebrate my birthday when I haven't been showing up to, whatever, to take care of our friend or to other birthdays. And I said, listen, if you don't want to celebrate your birthday because you don't feel like celebrating your birthday, then I'm fine with that. We don't all have to celebrate our birthdays. If you don't like celebrating, that's fine. But if you don't want to celebrate your birthday with us because you think that you haven't showed up enough, let me tell you right now that nobody's keeping score. And that's not the kind of friendship that this is. We're not going to let you get away with it just because her job was really demanding at that point. So nobody was thinking, where is she or why is she not helping? But she felt like she wasn't showing up enough. And I just had to tell her like, no, this is not how this friendship works. It's not like a 50-50. You haven't put in your 50 and therefore you don't get to celebrate your birthday with us. Like we love you. We want to celebrate you and we can be respectful about the fact that you might not want to celebrate, but we're not going to let you not celebrate because you don't feel like you deserve it.
Yeah. Like her capacity is currently capped with work.
Yeah.
This happens with people with younger kids or somebody who's caregiving, or I mean, there's sick. There's a million reasons somebody's capacity is capped. And we were saying it's just like everybody recognizes that. That's okay. This is not your moment to be the one, like the driving force on everything. Like it's okay to just show up sometimes.
Well, and let us love you too, right? Like, why would you not let us love you? You can't stop us from loving you and wanting to celebrate you. So,
I mean, what a beautiful thing you've done for your friend by just, I mean, basically you've been like, listen, you don't need to earn our love. We all care about you, right? Your friend doesn't get to decide, the gatekeep people caring about her. You get to decide. You decide you care about her. You want to celebrate her. So you can say you don't want your birthday to be celebrated, but otherwise you don't get to pick us loving you. Yeah. Like, what a beautiful gift to give your friend. To be like, no. We care about you. That's not how this works. Because I think we all do that. We shut ourselves out sometimes. This episode is such a beautiful example of these friendships, this group, this community building out of something so simple as basically a group chat. But I keep coming back in this episode to all the places we are holding ourselves back from connection. And as I just called out in this section, this is such a great example of not feeling like you're maybe worthy of a celebration, feeling like you've earned a celebration. Let that sink in for a second. Feeling like you have to earn being loved on by your people. Oof, that's a rough one. And after this little soundbite that I'm clipping in here, I go on to talk about this idea of reciprocity. You've heard me talk about this before, but as you listen to what I'm about to say, think about all the areas we hold ourselves back here. Like if somebody that is a friend of a friend offers to show up for you to drop off a meal and you find yourself saying, no, it's okay. You don't need to do that. Why are we doing that? Probably because I'm going to offer the idea that we don't feel like we've earned it. Why do we feel like we need to earn being cared for? And then to continue and flip it around, those moments where maybe you want to show up for somebody, where you have the capacity to drop off a meal to a friend of a friend. And you think, well, I'm not close enough to do that for them, or that might be weird. That might be overstepping. When in reality, in a moment that somebody's at their rock bottom, they could use all the help anybody has capacity to give. Just some thoughts. When you read about or hear about friendship for the most part out there, there's all this talk of like reciprocity, right? Like, I do this for you, so you do it back for me. And there's like this equal exchange. And I don't really like that way of looking at it. I talk about nourishment. So the idea is like, I figure out the ways I can nourish the people around me. There's certain things I can't do. I don't pressure myself to do it. And I just trust that in the moments where I need nourishment, I've surrounded myself by people that when I put it out there will nourish me back. And sometimes I put things out that like they might not even directly go back to you. They might be that your brother's family needs something and it just happens to fall in my skill set, right? So cooking's my skill set. So you might say, my brother got in an accident. I don't even know if you have a brother. I hope he does not get an accident, knock on wood. Now that I've said not. This. But okay, great. And, it's been really hard for them to cook with all their kids. And then I could be like, I could drop off a meal. And I have totally done this for people. And although that's not directly nourishing you, it is taking a worry off your plate instead of it feeling like that's the only thing it's something you need to do, even if it's not your way of showing up. Like, even if you're not a cook, that tends to be how I think of it. And then in moments where you're saying like somebody's at capacity, they need to be nourished in that moment. And when they have more capacity, they can hopefully step in and help others. Like, I think it's just less of this back, like tit for tat kind of thing.
Yeah. And I think when you are not expecting them to show up, like you're not doing it for them to show up,
Nope.
then when they do, it's a gift. It's a gift for them because they know you're not expecting it. It's not something that they have to do. And it's also a gift for you or your family or, you know, whoever they're doing it for, that whatever it is that they did. So yeah, we have some girls that are definitely the ones that make the big meals. Like, you know, like I was telling you with our girl that is going through cancer, we have one girl, well, there's actually a few of them that make the food. And then some of us go and drop it off because they might not be able to drive that far. And so now I think after almost 3 years, if not 3 years, I have lost track of time since COVID happened. It's about 3 years. Now we know our strengths, right? Like, so now we know who we want to cook or who would be the best person to take that role. Like I said, I'm the planner. I like to plan. I like to organize. I'm good at cleaning maybe, you know, and I can drive people around. I'm most of the time the one that drives people around. My car is big enough that we can fit quite a few people in there, and I enjoy driving. I actually get motion sickness, so I prefer to drive.
There you go.
And so, yeah, we all have our thing, right? And some of us right now can't, like, you know, the one that maybe has the younger kids, she might not necessarily be able to do the driving or, you know, but she shows up in ways that she can. Just knowing also your community and knowing who might be able to do something or how that they fit into whatever it's happening. Like for us right now, taking care of this girl, one of the girls is a nurse. And so she went and spent the first couple of nights with our girl after her surgery. And another one went and made some freezer meals. And I'm going to go up today and check on her and see what's happening with, you know, I'm the one that is more able maybe to help her clean up because I don't mind blood or, you know, whatever it is that comes with that. And, you know, our friend has a great community up there too, where she's living now. She has built a great community. And one of the things that we're so grateful is that she allows us to be a part of that journey. She has walked us through her journey with her. Like she's allowed us to be right there with her through her journey. And we are more able to now take care of her because we know what she needs, right? Because she's open enough to say, hey, today, this is what I need. And one of us will figure out how to get it done or, you know, bring it to her if it's something that she needs. So that's another thing. It's like sometimes when we're going through difficult things, we want to keep it to ourselves or we want to figure it out ourselves. A lot of the times we need that community to be able to get through it, right? So the fact that she has allowed this group and other people into her life and she's been so open about all the things that she's been going through. Like I have learned so much about how to support somebody in a situation like this because she allowed me to be there for her. So I have so much respect for people that go through this. And not that I didn't before, but I just didn't know what it meant, right? Like there's so many things that you just don't know because you don't know them until you have to walk with somebody or walk yourself through something like that. So
yeah, she's let you into the messy and the vulnerable and you get to see it.
And we really are so grateful that she has allowed us to be part of that and to love her so much, you know, like however we can. I was able to go to a couple of her appointments. You know, I wasn't able to do all the things. And, you know, you've talked about this on the podcast. We don't necessarily need one person to be all of it for you. It's hard. It's hard to be the only one to do something with somebody. But when you have a community like this, where the strength of others can be a way, you know, like to serve this person, and she's allowing us to do it, it's just so magical too. It brings me to tears sometimes to see her posts on Facebook or Instagram where she is going through something, her surgeries or her chemo or whatever she's going through. And it brings me to tears to see how many people have been supporting her, right? And I'm right there with her. And she's like a sister to me. Like she's the one that we've been friends for, I don't know, over 10 years now. So out of the whole group, this friend is the one that I knew. She's actually the one that brought me to this church. She invited me to the church. And so she pretty much is the one that has opened so many doors or, helped me. It was really hard for me. She's like a sister to me. And so it was really hard when she had that diagnosis. And of course it's hard for her, right? And I can't even imagine what was going through her head. And then you want to support your friend. And I felt like, I haven't shared this with many people, but I felt like so heavy, right? Like this whole thing now fell on our laps with her diagnosis. And then all of a sudden it's like, but we don't have to do it alone because we have so many other people that will be able to help with food or doctor's appointments, running her from where she lives, because she was coming all the way to Kirkland to do her chemo. And so that's a long drive. We would meet halfway sometimes. We would meet her sister-in-law halfway so that we didn't have to do that big drive, just one person. So yeah, I mean, it's just, you need that community. I think we were created, or, like us as people, we are meant to be in community.
We are meant to be in community.
If we go back to like the caves, we needed that community to survive. And I think we still do. We still need that community. It's been difficult to see that now that we have social media and like there's so many ways where we feel like we can hide. And the reality is we need the community. And it's such a beautiful process to create your community. And when you know that you already have it, to allow them to show how they can lift you up or how you can lift them up too. I could talk about this all day. So
we aren't meant to do this life alone. I firmly believe that we are not meant to do this life alone. And, I think if this episode illustrates anything, I do think that technology and social media and apps and whatnot, like they're tools. They are tools, but it's what we decide to do with them and how we take it and like connect it into that real life where we are being more vulnerable. Like if you never open up and allow it to go outside of that, then I think that's where a lot of people get in trouble. And in trouble meaning like they feel so disconnected, even though quote unquote connection is at our fingertips all the time. Thank you so much for this beautiful, beautiful example of how something so simple as a Marco Polo favorite things group and a little time and some intention can grow into such a flourishing, supportive community. It doesn't happen overnight, but it definitely is possible. I think this is such a great example for people that are seeking that. So thank you so much for sharing with anybody. Do you have any last things you want to share about the group or to people?
If there's anything that anybody is going to take away from this is it might not be easy, but it is so worth it to open yourself up and be vulnerable. And, of course, I'm talking about you don't need to share all the things with everybody. I'm actually a very private person and I don't share a lot of things with people that I just met. But it's okay to just allow yourself to be you wherever you go. And that will attract the people that you want to have connection with. I think that's one of the things that I have noticed, even with my life, is that if I just show up authentically, then the people that are attracted to that will come to me and I will be able to create friendships. And you're not going to please everybody. No. You're not going to be friends with everybody. And you have to be okay with that. I think the relationship that you have with yourself first, when you have a good relationship with yourself and then you bring that to other places, you are able to somehow the energy or whatever it is you start attracting the people that you want in your life, and they might not stay forever. They might just be there for a little bit of time, but it's so worth it to just show up yourself, authentically yourself, allow the relationship to run the course that it needs to run, and just enjoy it while you have it.
Yeah. Whether it's short or long, it was real.
And there's a reason. You're going to find something. You're going to learn something from them. They might learn something from you, whatever it is that you can offer at that point, and just let it do what it's supposed to do.
Yeah. Let it be. Well, thank you so much, Brenda. This was such a great combo. This was so good.
Thank you for having me. It's such a pleasure.
There we have it, friends. An inside, behind the scenes example of how somebody took something so simple as a Marco Polo group and turned it into this thriving community in their lives. With the ups and the downs and the hard times. We got examples of the types of conversations, the intentional small acts of vulnerability that added up over time. Like, this episode was so rich in so many tangible examples that any of us, myself included, you, your friends, could implement into our lives. Be sure to head to the show notes and check out where you can find Brenda and her work. Pop over and ask her some questions if you feel like it. With that, I'll see you next week. Thank you for listening to this episode of Friendship IRL. I am so honored to have these conversations with you, but don't let the chat die here. Send me a voice message. I created a special website just to chat with you. You can find it at alex.chat. You can also find me on Instagram. My handle @itsAlexAlexander, or go ahead and leave a review wherever you prefer to listen to podcasts. Now, if you want to take this conversation a step further, send this episode to a friend. Tell them you found it interesting, and use what we just talked about as a conversation starter the next time you and your friend hang out. No need for a teary goodbye. I'll be back with a new episode next week.